Hello everyone, and thank you for stopping by. Might I say right off the bat that the information you will get today is not something that you will find in the mass media. In fact, you're here now because you know I'm willing to tell you the truth. And you know you'll hear things that the CBC, the CTV, Global News, and other Canadian news outlets are not willing to tell you. And I didn't need to get a $500 million bailout to tell you this. I'm just here, a solo operated channel, giving you info that the other outlets have just been bought not to tell you. So sit back and enjoy today's video. In my opinion, immigration is the most important issue for any government. Too little control on our borders and everything within the country will be affected, from healthcare to infrastructure to segregated ethnic enclaves. No control, which is where we are at in Canada, will result in the invasion of our country and the collapse of our social programs, leading inevitably to civil war. The People's Party of Canada, or PPC, which is Maxime Bernier's newly formed party, being the only party addressing immigration issues, deserves serious consideration and ultimately your vote. It puts forward concrete, achievable, and peaceful ways of accepting immigrants with skills who will contribute to the economy. The PPC will also reduce the total amount of immigrants and oppose the fascist doctrine of multiculturalism that is the force behind illegal mass migration. Now, before I keep going on this topic, let me tell you that I am not sponsored by the PPC. I have never met Maxime Bernier, and I'm not even certain that he will be able to stop the unvetted mass illegal migration that is going on. But I can tell you that after seeing the Liberals encourage foreigners to break our laws and enter our country illegally, and then reward them handsomely with hotel, language, legal, and healthcare accommodations, to name a few, the PPC platform is sure as heck our best hope to preserve our Canadian culture and way of life. The Conservatives used to be the gatekeepers of our culture, but they have betrayed Canadians with their silence on the issue. Immigration is a serious issue, and unvetted illegal migration is an unacceptable issue. It's like paying a burglar to rob your home. And from what I can see, the PPC is the only party addressing the issue, so that's why I'm making this video. So back at it, folks. If you're part of any of these groups, I'd encourage you to look into the PPC because you specifically have a stake in this. We all do, but you specifically. First group, Muslims. I suspect your imams will likely tell you in the mosques to vote liberal. But for any free-thinking Muslims out there who will take the time to hear me out, this one's for you. Many of you and your parents and grandparents before you chose Canada because of the freedom to practice your religion, but also the freedom to decide how much of the religion you practice. You came to Canada to flee the repressive, supremacist, and totalitarian Islamic regimes. In Canada, you are free from the Sharia patrol that exists in Indonesia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia. Basically, any country with a Muslim majority has the Sharia patrol, and this patrol goes around looking for people breaking Sharia rules, such as wearing your hijab or niqab wrong, listening to music, an unmarried man and an unmarried woman out together, if you're storing any wine or beer in your house, a woman out without her guardian's permission. Just Google Sharia patrol and you'll see many more examples of what Muslims get arrested for in Islamic countries. In Canada, you are free from all of that in the streets. We not only leave Muslims alone and free to practice the religion, but we also accommodate many of the Islamic requirements in our society. So Muslims in Canada are free and they thrive. However, let me tell you about some of the people coming in through mass illegal migration. Some of them are the very people that you, your parents, and your grandparents have fled. The militant Islamists who want the Sharia everywhere. Mass illegal migration is the Trojan horse of Islam. And in fact, it's not even a true Trojan horse because they themselves have announced that they will use immigration to infiltrate Western countries and work from within to establish Islam as the only doctrine. they want to and will work towards replacing Canadian law with Islamic law. This is why we see more and more jihad attacks in Europe since 2015. These jihadis have told us they will use the mass migration as a mean to access our countries. Now you've all read the Quran, I assume, so you all know about how the hypocrites are to be handled under Islam. Hypocrites in the Islamic doctrine are Muslims who are not Islamic enough. This is you, Canadian Muslims. The Islamic State deems you hypocrites because you do not follow the Quran and the teachings of Prophet Muhammad enough. Therefore, you will be the first targets of these jihadi newcomers, or at least you'll be collateral damage. Have you ever wondered why jihadis attack music concerts and bars and Christmas markets? It's because all of those are un-Islamic. And if you're a Muslim and happen to be at one of those events during a jihadi attack and you die, the Islamic State will have the too bad, so sad mentality about your death and will claim that if you were a true Muslim, you would not have been there in the first place. Essentially, you will be killed because you are not Islamic enough, either outright or by proxy because you showed up at an infidel gathering. This is the main reason that the main victims of Muslims are other Muslims. And this is not my interpretation of events. This is what Muslims who are fully committed to the Sharia have been telling us for 1400 years. On to the second group that should be voting for Maxime Bernier and the PPC. Any immigrant that came here lawfully. Most of my friends are actually either first or second generation immigrants, and every one of them has fled their countries. They've spent a lot of time, money, energy proving to the Canadian government that they are worthy candidates for immigration, and now have to sit back and watch illegals crossing our border illegally and illegally staying in our country while living like Canadians who have contributed for years to our society. Have I said illegally enough? Yeah, that's right. I'm going to keep repeating that those border crossers are here illegally and should have been put back onto buses leading them right back out of our country with a penalty of at least 10 years in which they cannot seek entry into Canada. That's how I would handle illegal border crossers if I were a leader. But I'm not. So I hope that Bernier is up for the task. So anyways, if you're an immigrant or a descendant of an immigrant, the outrage alone at watching other immigrants break the law while you lawfully obtained your status and ultimately your citizenship should cause you to vote for Bernier. LGBT. Friends on the LGBT side, you and I don't always see eye to eye on all issues, but I'm hoping you will vote for Bernier. You see, I grew up in the 90s and I watched as the gay rights rose, and as long as your business is between consenting adults and you don't shove your pride in my face every time I see you so that we can simply interact as a human being in a respectful way, I am actually a defender of your cause. But the Liberals and Trudeau, no matter how many pride socks he wears, you will have to realize that he also wears the Islamic socks. And I'm sad to report that under Islamic law, you as a gay person will be thrown off buildings to be killed because gayness is not permissible under Islam. I hope that you join the free-thinking Muslims and the immigrants in stopping the crazy illegal mass migration. Just like the Muslims who aren't Islamic enough, you will be targeted by the Islamics invading our country under the guise of migration. It's already started. The persecution of gays in America? Just think back to the Pulse nightclub jihad attack. Those are your fellow friends from the gay community who paid with their lives. Doctors, nurses, and hospital staff. If everything you heard from the previous groups isn't convincing enough, well, the biological threat of mass illegal unvetted migration should scare you. You're all scientists, so I don't need to explain to you the disease transmission, but just remember that in addition to antibiotic-resistant tuberculosis, whooping cough, HIV, measles, and more diseases are carried over our border by unvetted mass migration. Not to mention that you will have to deal with infections that result from female genital mutilation and male migrant patients who will be abusive to female healthcare workers. Just look at how the mass migrants, who are mostly male by the way, are treating hospital staff in Germany, France, Sweden, or Denmark. That's a whole other video, and doctors from those countries already blew the whistle on that issue. They are warning us. But in Canada, our healthcare is already reaching crisis level, and this is not sustainable long term. So perhaps flooding it with illegals is not the best way to go about restructuring the system to make sure that tax-paying Canadians get the healthcare they paid for. Alright, last group, we've made it to the end. Anyone who is on welfare, or at least has been on welfare at some point in their life. Look, the Canadian government does not have enough money to pay out the veterans who fought to defend our country. But somehow they are finding more than enough funds to throw at illegal border crossers. How long until they cut your welfare programs? The math does not add up, and there are simply not enough taxpayers to even fund our existing welfare programs, let alone paying for people who shouldn't be here in the first place. And I'd like to remind you that the Liberals and Trudeau will simply bring more and more illegal here. Justin Trudeau will sign the UN Migration Pact, and that will be disastrous for Canada. He is reaching the highest level of treason with that pact. And Bernier is trying to do what is best for Canadians. So to recap today's video, if you are a Muslim, an immigrant to Canada, a healthcare worker, a welfare recipient, and basically anyone at this point who actually cares about freedom in Canada, you should seriously consider voting PPC in 2019. I'm not sure what other options we have, but I can tell you that another Trudeau term and none of you will recognize Canada anymore. You will realize then the gravity of the whole situation, and I'm just trying to warn you ahead of time. So there you have it, folks. Take care, everyone, and I will see you in the next one.